start his video later. So there you
There
go.
I am.
Yeah. So. All right, who we missing?
I think they're all there. Huh?
Missing the mayor and Matt.
Yeah, Matt's running he's got the live stream on. So.
Okay.
There he is.
Ken, you're looking good.
Well, thank you. Sorry.
I like your new setup, Ken. It looks better. Are you holding it or you got it propped up?
Propped up.
Well, that's better.
Aaron looks relaxed.
I used to.
Need to turn it the other way so you're not small.
Yeah, I like Doc's new goatee and mustache. I think that's
It's my COVID look.
right. I like.
So I don't know if the mayor's coming on. He doesn't have his video on yet.
I'm here.
Oh, there he's got his video.
Sorry, y'all.
7 óra 15 perc.
On mute. Put it up. Bottom on the other side. On the
All right. We lost Mark, and once we get Mark back, then I guess we can start the meeting, Carl.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to call the meeting to order of the council meeting of April 14th, the Galion City Council. And if you can, all rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
It's like,
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it
it
stands,
stands.
one
one
nation
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for
Justice
all.
for all.
While you're standing there, Dr. Fellner will give the invocation tonight.
Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for all the blessings that you have given us this day. Thank you for the strength and courage in this trying season of our lives. Thank you for the knowledge that regardless of our circumstances, you are in control. Thank you for Governor DeWine's leadership and Dr. Acton's wise counsel. Thank you for this opportunity to do the business of the city of Galion. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. Have roll call council members.
Mr. Baldinger,
Here.
Mr. Botkins,
Here.
Ms. Earlston,
Here.
Dr. Fellner,
Here,
Mr. Ivy,
Here.
Mr. Richard. Did I hear Mr. Richard?
Yeah, here.
Okay. Mr. Triplett.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, we'll have roll call of elected officials and safety service director.
Mayor Leary. Did he say here? Auditor Trigg,
Here.
Director of Law Palmer,
Here.
Treasurer Sparks, Safety Service Director Ward.
Here.
In recognition of department heads, I believe Matt is there. Matt,
Yes, hello.
Yep, he's putting it onto the live stream for us, Carl.
okay, I'm sure he was still there. That the only,
Trish Factor is here.
I'm hiding back here like I always do, Carl.
as usual, I can't see you. Okay, well, that's it. Okay. Moving on, approval of the March 24th council meeting. And we have a motion to approve.
Minutes.
Carl, make a motion to approve the minutes from March 24th, regular meeting.
Okay, we got a motion by Mr. Richards, a second.
Second.
That's by, who made that?
I did.
Mark,
Triplett.
Mark, okay.
if you could say your name so he knows.
Yeah. You're supposed to light up around, but I didn't see it lit up that time. Okay, second by Mark and Mr. Triplett. Any discussion, corrections, additions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed likewise. Minutes of the March 24th meeting is hereby approved as presented. Julie, one other thing before we start here is all these, which ones did not go through committee tonight? Could you?
What needs added to the agenda is the council rules.
Wait a minute,
And-
that's number,
That's just the council rules at the top.
yeah, okay.
And then the resolution 2020-8.
That's the only one.
Yeah, those are the only two things that need added to the agenda.
Okay. Okay, do I have a motion to add resolution number 2020-9 to the agenda tonight?
8.
I'll make a motion to add resolution 2020-8. Mark?
No, okay, motion by Mr. Triplett, second by,
Doc. Aye.
who's
Who
this?
seconded it?
Doc.
Doc, okay.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
No, I gotta do a roll call on that.
Roll call on that, okay.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now I need a motion to approve the
You have to add council rules.
council
I mean-
rule. Okay,
I make a motion to add item 3, temporary rules of council to the agenda.
okay, that's Dr. Fellner, right?
Yes.
Second,
Mr. Triplett.
Mark.
I don't see him. Is he on there? Oh, down here in the corner. He's in the dark. Motion by Dr. Fellner. Is there a second to the motion?
Second,
Okay,
Mark.
Mr. Triplett, second the motion. Hey,
Okay.
you want to read that or?
I have to, Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passed by a 7-0 vote. Okay, moving in on to a motion to approve the amended agenda. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion. This is Dr. Fellner. I make a motion to approve the,
Okay, Dr. Fellner.
Second,
Okay, second by Mr. Triplett. Voice vote, all in favor, say aye.
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 Likewise. Okay, amended, approved as amended agenda approved as voted. Okay, moving on to next item is legislation is ordinance 2020-8, the second reading.
Council rules first, Carl.
Pardon?
Council rules first.
Change first, Carl.
Oh, we voted on it, but
No, we just added them to the agenda.
yeah, okay, excuse me. Okay. You want to read those first, Julie, or whatever we, on this, not the whole thing, but,
This is, I'll give a synopsis. This is Galion City Council temporary rules of council, and this is doing as allowed by Ohio House Bill 197 as drafted by Director Palmer.
okay. Do we have a motion then to approve this is right, temporary rules of council?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Mr. Baldwin read the motion, seconded by
Aye.
Mr. Richard.
Yeah, I second that.
Okay. That's voice, that'd be.
Yeah, I got Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner. Dr. Fellner. We lose Dr. Fellner?
I'm back.
Okay.
Dr. Fellner, do
I'm
you,
back.
yeah. We're roll calling on the temporary rules of council. We're up to you.
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
yes,
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
Passed by 7-0 vote. Now legislation, second reading for ordinance 2020-8.
Ordinance number 2020-8, entitled an ordinance clarifying employee pay ranges for certain non-bargaining unit employees, repealing ordinance numbers 2008-54, 2008-25, 2011-17, 2013-46, and 2014-28, to the extent it conflicts with provisions of this ordinance and declaring an emergency.
Okay, questions on this or discussion?
I'd like to make a motion, Carl.
Okay,
This is Dr. Fellner. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and proceed to the final reading on ordinance 2020-8.
okay, you've heard the motion to suspend the rules by Dr. Feldner. Do you hear a second?
Second, Mark.
Second by Mr. Triplett. Roll call.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Abstain.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard.
yes.
And what did you say, Mr. Baldinger?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Huh?
He's abstaining.
He's
Oh,
abstaining.
abstain, okay.
Okay, motion to suspend the rules passed by 6-0 vote, or 6 ayes and 1 abstention. Now do we have discussion on the ordinance?
Carl,
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion to pass ordinance 2020-8.
okay, you've heard the motion by Mr. Triplett. Do we have a second?
I will second Ivy.
This is, who made that?
Mr. Ivy seconded.
Okay, second by Mr. Ivy. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes,
Mr. Baldinger,
Abstain.
Mr. Bodkins, Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed by 6 ayes and 1 abstention. Moving on, the next ordinance is 2020-20, first reading.
Ordinance number 2020-20, entitled ordinance amending ordinance number 2019-85, permanent 2020 appropriations by transferring funds within the stormwater funds and declaring an emergency.
Discussion on this ordinance.
About this in Finance Committee here at about 20 after 6. This here pertains to operations for the stormwater projects, I believe, but it's, for the kind of the east end of town over on the Murray Street area, Ribble Street area. It's a continuation of the project that we've already on to the mayor. Yes, if he would like to talk about.
Okay. Other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, is a suspension of the rules in order here, or is there a time frame that we have to work with?
The transfer will allow us to go ahead and purchase order with Lynn McKeever's firm to go ahead and get phase 4 under act. So I guess
Okay, I get it.
urgent, but the sooner it can get approved, the better.
Okay,
That's really where the money's going, is into a line so that we can have a purchase order sufficient to have Lynn design that next round.
And as was discussed in the committee meeting, the money would be less than originally allocated.
in the infrastructure, where it's coming is basically was appropriated in the hopes that we could do 2 stormwater projects. As the state funding, we hope to get phase 3 funded. Phase 4 is definitely out over the horizon. So anyway.
Okay, other discussion, or do we have a motion to suspend the rules at this time? Do we-
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules on ordinance 2020-20 and proceed to the final reading.
I will second. Ivy?
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Fellner, second by Mr. Ivy. Roll call.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston.
Yes.
Okay, motion to suspend the rules on this ordinance passed by a 7-0 vote. Now discussion on the ordinance.
Mr. Carl, I'd like to make a motion to pass ordinance 2020-20.
Okay, you heard the motion by Mr. Triplett. Do I have a second?
Second that, Ken Bodkin.
Okay, Mr. Bodkin second the motion. Further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance passed by a 7-0 vote. Moving on to ordinance 2020-21, first reading.
Ordinance number 2020-21, entitled ordinance amending section 1 of ordinance number 2020-15, requesting the trustees of the Egbert M. Freed Foundation to distribute income therefrom to the city of Galion for the purposes outlined here and declaring an emergency.
To the reading ordinance, do I have discussion on it?
Yeah, this is Mr. Ivy. This came about, we are significantly reducing our request from the Freeze Foundation for the projects that we had discussed at last full council due to the, the situation that we're in the country right now and the uncertainty of where the parks are going to be this summer. So instead of the $398,000 that we had requested and approved, we have reduced that to just over $67,000 for the bare necessities. The pool, the repair, the paint, the safety mulch and drainage at High C and East Park. Just feel that it's the appropriate and the right thing to do at this point in time. Not to mention that the Freeze Foundation has taken a little bit of a hit in the first quarter of the sum of just over $1 million. So with the times that we're in right now and the certainty, it just is, we feel it's a responsible thing to do.
Thank you. Any questions on this or discussion?
Point of clarification on this, the one that the council has, their package, Thomas, is the one with the school. But the one we passed out of committee does not have that in that.
Do we have to amend this one to take
That's why I'm
that out?
asking Thomas.
You would have to, yes.
I'll make a motion to strike section C, which concerns the school
Okay,
on page 3.
okay.
That's
Mr.
amended,
Triplett,
that's amended,
amending, yeah,
yeah, that's amended motion, okay?
amending it, yeah.
Okay, by Mr. Triplett, do we have a second?
This is Mike Richard. I second it.
Okay, we have a second by Mr. Richards. Discussion?
Is there going to be any, is the school receiving any funds then, or how is that going to work?
Oh,
Sounded to me like there wasn't receiving any, is that right?
That is,
You say yes?
it's really,
Wait.
not to jump in, but I think there's a school of thought that I happen to be the principal of that school of thought that we shouldn't do anything. But I think of all people who have an interest in this is not to fail to make those necessary improvements. And there's really definitely a safety issue with the way the old playgrounds, the mulch and the fell off the slides and such of those playgrounds. So
Okay.
I really don't know when. I mean, I guess why I say all that, and I'll make it quick, is that I have a high degree of uncertainty as to when we'll be allowed to open up our parks for any kind of activity. So we've done some things in anticipation of a post stay-at-home order day. We're ordering hand sanitizers and wipes that we'll have installed at the playgrounds, so that in this post stay-at-home order day or era, that we'll be able to provide as much necessary hand cleaning and toy feature cleaning as possible. So anyway, we'll go ahead and ask in the hopes that it makes sense, because it's a pretty clear signal that at some point in the summer the school would be open.
The audio keeps breaking up for me. Did you say that you have already ordered hand sanitizer and stuff to be installed at the parks? Is that what I heard?
Of the actual purchase orders in, but Matt was able to find just exactly what we were thinking about talking about. So we'll get that stuff on order and plan to fund that through the Parks Fund. Kind of.
Carl, you have a pending motion to strike paragraph C, which talks specifically about the schools.
Yeah.
Schools are out. I'm not play ball sport.
Okay, that answers the question, Mrs. Earlston?
50 or 60 guys mauling each other on the field. This is social distancing.
Okay,
My audio keeps breaking up. So
Yeah, as people are fiddling and making noises, it keeps going to them, because I see it moving all around. So as people move around, it makes the audio go in and out.
okay, yeah. So I'm only hearing a little bit of bits and pieces. So,
okay.
but
Law director said we have a motion on the table here. Was there a
I
second?
made the motion.
Okay, and who's
Mr.
second?
Richards seconded it.
Okay, so roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
yes.
Dr. Fellner.
Yes.
Mr. Ivy.
Yes.
Juliet, was an amended motion?
That was to amend to take out
Yeah.
item C. So now we need to suspend the rules and then do the other motion.
Okay, now we need discussion on the ordinance,
We need to suspend the rules, yeah, if we want to.
right, if you want to. Is it your wish to suspend the rules on this ordinance?
Yeah, this is Mr. Baldinger. I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules on let's see, ordinance number 20-21 and go to a final reading.
I second. Ivy.
Okay, motion by Mr. Baldinger, second by Mr. Ivy. Roll call.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner.
Yes.
Okay, motion to suspend the rules passed by 7-0 vote. Now discussion on the ordinance.
Carl, I would like to make a motion to pass ordinance number 2020-21.
Okay, you heard the motion by Mr. Triplett. Do I hear a second?
I will.
Watkins.
Okay, second by Mr. Watkins. Discussion? Roll call?
Do it. That's the only thing I want to add to what I've already said. It's really under, I think we all enjoy seeing the results of the freeze fund projects in the community. It's a bummer, but like was said at the very beginning, I believe by Aaron, the foundation got whacked. The endowment got lost about $1 million in the first quarter of 2020. And the uncertainty about when and whether we'll be able to open the park says we should probably have very modest request and what we can to keep that endowment buoyed up rather than reducing its principal.
Thank you. Moving on to ordinance 2020-20.
We haven't voted on that yet.
Right, okay. Roll call?
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger.
Yes.
It passed by 7-0 vote. Now, discussion on the ordinance.
No, we just did that. We're on the new ordinance. We're on 22, 22.
Okay, get with it. This is very confusing, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're moving on to 2020-22, first reading.
Ordinance number 2020-22, entitled ordinance amending ordinance number 2019-85, permanent 2020 appropriations by appropriating funds from unappropriated funds in the general fund and declaring an emergency.
Okay, questions, discussion? Who would like to address this?
Yeah, this is Mr. Baldinger. This also went through committee. And this is the funds to the Vita Hospital here in the city of Galion, in the amount of $40,000 to buy supplies and masks and basically materials for the coronavirus. So, yeah, if there's anybody else want to add anything, feel free.
Mayor, would you like to make any comments on that?
Just the request came from the Avita Foundation. That's who we expect to be. Request for drawdowns on that 40,000 would come from the Avita Foundation. From the best I understand is they, by the Avita management, to raise funds for their coronavirus response efforts. And I believe all council members got a copy of the proposed budget. As I said at the committee meeting, we've in conversations with the Avita Foundation, we made it clear that what we want this money to go to, if approved, are for devices, as was said a minute ago, masks, gowns, I believe ultraviolet cleaning system or two that's in the proposed budget. So the understanding is that this will be used for Galion Community Hospital, part of Avita, both in the urgent, immediate need, and then in the future, if it's needed for storage, so that we're much better prepared if and when there's a similar epidemic hits us. So.
Okay, any other questions?
Not, I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules on ordinance number 2020-22 and move to the final reading.
The motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Baldinger.
I second Ivy.
Mr. Ivy seconded. Roll call.
Mr. Baldinger. Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner.
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules passed by 7-0 vote. Now discussion on the ordinance.
I have a few questions. What happens if they find they don't need the money, is it going to be returned, or how will that work? Do we?
You discussed this in the committee meeting, Mr. Mayor, about this whole thing. Would you answer that?
Yeah, I think that the answer to your question, Mr. Earlston, is that what will happen, they won't make requests for all of the funds, or that they will use the funds to buy, stockpile maybe sounds like, use a few thousand extra N95 masks. So what I think is any of the devices that aren't used, that they purchased that aren't used in the immediate pandemic would be kept on site or kept with a designation that they're used for Galion in the future.
Also, I'm kind of curious what other cities are doing, because I know Avita covers a lot of cities. They're in Mansfield and Crestline, and how are those cities handling this? Do we know how they're handling this kind of same situation? Is those cities also?
I don't know is the short answer, but I'm not exhausted by all of this and worn out, so I'll give you a mean answer. I think that I asked that very quickly. It's up to them to decide what to do. Ontario, Iris. I think so. That's all I'll say about that. I might, Mr. President, I'll say one more thing. There are a few times that this of any place is asked specifically and directly for I think this is not an unlimited, it's a large amount. Don't want to make light of it, but this is key to our community, and that it's few times that the local hospital employer, important part of Galion community, asks us for some support, and I think we just need to be accountable and responsible for the city of Galion's reaction, and if Avita Health Avita Foundation is able to raise money from other cities, then that's to their benefit. So.
And I thought the original amount was 10,000. How did we come up with the 40,000 to give?
Because they asked for an amount similar to what other foundations were offering. They solicited the community foundation, a number of other foundations. They asked for 10,000. When I was called, they were their fundraising was significantly short of that 10,000. 10,000 wasn't going to close the gap. And so I followed up and asked them what they would need in order to meet the critical mission costs that they'd identified in this plan that they're being asked to develop by ODH, or I'm not sure exactly who is charging them with that. And there was a void that I think the $40,000 will allow them to get on with preparing and get done fundraising. So.
And then just a couple more questions. I don't really know how that FEMA works, but I know FEMA is giving money for the COVID situation. Is there any, could the city get reimbursed for any of that through FEMA or the health department, or is that any way an option to help us out with this?
I believe if those dollars flow into Crawford, it'll be a great day. And I guess the answer to that is we'll cross that. If for instance, Avita was fully reimbursed, I expect that they would call us again and say, hey, is there some way that we can make you whole? I don't want to get in the soapbox, it doesn't take much, but I've never been in 40 years of this around a state and federal. I agree with what Doc Fellner said about Dr. Acton and Governor DeWine doing great things. Okay, never been around such an over-promising, under-delivering government response in 40 years of this. So if FEMA comes to help Avita out, that'll be a good day. Right now, they need the cash. So I'm very, very skeptical about relying on state and federal funds. And any response, we have strongly believe that we have some reasons we can help. And we got to do that. And, you know, if Uncle Sam becomes Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus, God bless us all. But I don't know why we have all this confidence in the federal government.
May I make, please?
So that's all I got to say about that. I could go on and on, but I'll save that. We've got to take care of ourselves. If FEMA comes through, I'm confident that the hospital will be as fair with us as I hope we're fair with them.
Could I make a comment, please, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just, you know, everybody knows I'm in this industry. Personal protective equipment is so scarce right now that there are so many hospitals, nursing homes, home health care companies, hospice companies that are having to reuse masks and reuse things like that. Avita, my wife, who's a social worker in the area, told me this evening that Avita personnel can go up between 60 and 70 pieces of PPE per day, just doing their daily routine and duties, or per person per day. So this stuff is very, very hard to find. It's a major part of every day, calling around to different departments of health. So if we as a community could help them, and they are the largest employer in the city, and, you know, in good faith, hopefully in the future, as the mayor just alluded to, you know, what goes around comes around. Karma is a good thing sometimes. So it's a very trying time right now. And I assure you that they are struggling to find this stuff. And if they do find it, it is not cheap.
What fund are we taking this out of?
The unappropriated general fund. There's about, I don't know, Brian, if you're on, I think it's about 6.5, it may be more like 6.3 million.
Yeah, you're very close, Mr. Mayor, on that. It's our strongest fund by far.
Any other questions, discussion?
Money when we expect between a $2.5 and $3 million drawdown on that general fund. I believe it's unprecedented that they would call us and ask for those resources. I want to be there if they don't need them. Okay, we'll keep our powder dry, but something tells me we're not out of the woods in terms of the crisis, and that's
Okay. Any other? Or ask for a motion?
Do we have a motion yet?
No.
Just suspended the rules is all.
Pardon?
All we did was suspend the rules.
Yes,
We did that. So far.
Okay,
did that.
I would like to make a motion to pass ordinance 2020-22.
Okay, you heard the motion by Mr. Triplett. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Richard.
Okay, Mr. Richards, second the motion. Further discussion? None, roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy.
yes.
Motion passed by 7-0 vote. Moving on to ordinance 2020-23, first reading.
Ordinance number 2020-23, entitled an ordinance adopting amended utility billing and collection rules and regulations and repealing ordinance number 2019-63 and declaring an emergency.
Okay, discussion on this ordinance?
Yeah, this came through the Utilities Committee, and what they're doing is extending the late payment to 6 months. And foregoing the late fees until the emergency's over. Basically, what it's doing.
Explanation. By mine, Mr. President, we're restricted now under that current ordinance with a 3-month or 90-day payment plan. So when somebody falls behind and we negotiate a repayment plan to keep them on, so we don't have to shut them off, we're limited to 90 days. I think we anticipate, and a lot of other Ohio munis anticipate having to extend that. 90 days is pretty much what Ohio AMP utilities have. We're really kind of in that standard late policy. Many other cities are moving like I hope we are tonight to extend 3 months to 6 months. And as Mark said, the 5% late fee, it's 5% of the unpaid balance. We're going to waive that over that. If it say it in the ordinance, the late fee goes to 0. But what we anticipate is in 6 months or so, when we're back to a more stable state, council coming back and discussing whether they want to reinstitute that late fee.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion?
Mr. President, there were two specific changes, two specific amendments that were made in committee earlier this evening. One is, as the mayor just said, under billing and payment, the second paragraph, it says 5%, that was changed to 0. And then secondly, if you'll go to the last page, under financial hardship, there was an amendment made to change the written word 90 to the written word 180. And then I believe, Julie, if I'm not wrong, that 1/3 as written out has become 1/6.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Thomas. You're absolutely right.
Yep. Sorry about that.
That's really cool.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules on amended ordinance 2020-23 and go to the final reading.
This is Mr. Buckner. I'd like to second.
Okay, then a motion by Mr. Triplett, second by Mr. Balding to suspend the rules of this ordinance. Roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules passed by 7-0 vote. Now discussion on the ordinance.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pass ordinance 2020-23.
Heard the motion by Mr. Triplett. Do I hear a second?
I will second. Ivy.
Mr. Ivy seconded.
Mr. Ivy seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Ordinance passed by 7-0 vote. Moving on to ordinance 2020-24, first reading.
24. We have resolution 2020-8. That's what's next.
Don't we have ordinance 2020-24 yet?
No, I don't have that on there.
Credit card policy, did you take that off? or-
That was taken off. You got an older version.
Oh, okay, well, that simplifies that.
Okay,
Now, resolution 2020-8, first reading.
okay. All right. I'm all,
By my apologies to Mrs. Earlston and her committee. It didn't get through that, but we've been a member, at least a member on that health board for quite a while. And I was pleased that Andrea Wildenthaler had to resign, seems like a couple of years ago now, has agreed to come back and fill that one vacancy. So that's really the recommendation, that she would fill the term as is listed there in that resolution.
Okay, heard the mayor speak on that.
I need to read the resolution yet, so.
Okay, go ahead.
Resolution number 2020-8, entitled a resolution approving the appointment of Andy Wildenthaler to the Galion City Health Board as appointed by the city mayor and declaring an emergency.
Okay, discussion. Do I hear a motion to approve?
This is Dr. Fellner. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and proceed to the final reading on resolution 2020-8.
You've heard the motion to suspend the rules by Dr. Fellner, seconded by,
Second,
who's that?
Triplet.
Triplet, second the motion. Roll call.
Dr. Felder,
Yes.
Mr. Triplet,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins, Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy. We lose Mr. Ivy?
I don't see him.
Hold on, he's coming back in. Hold on. All right, we go.
Sorry,
All right, we're getting you back on.
thank you. Sorry about that. I just got booted.
Okay.
Good, all right.
We were up to you on how, when did you get booted?
If it's for about Mrs. Wilton-Flower's appointment, I say yes.
Okay, you're okay. All right. We're on the suspend the rules and then Mr. Richard.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, suspend the rules passed by 7-0 vote. Now discussion on the resolution itself.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pass resolution number 2020-8.
Okay, you've heard the motion by Mr. Triplet. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And that's who by who?
Mr. Baldinger seconded.
Mr. Baldinger seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Triplet,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Ms. Earlston,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard.
Yes.
Okay, resolution 2020-8 has passed by 7-0 vote. Moving on to other business. We don't have any further committee meetings set up, do we, Julie?
No, not yet.
Right, okay. Okay, other business, any from the council members themselves?
Oh.
Any discussion on other business? If not, move on to elected officials. First, Auditor Trish.
I have nothing for tonight, other than we are closely watching with the mayor the funds and seeing what's happening during this emergency. It's interesting, let's just say that.
Yes. That's it?
That's it for me.
Okay, and Treasurer Sparks he's not here.
Not in attendance, no.
Okay. Law Director Palmer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just to let council members know, if you need to get hold of me, best way to do that is probably through Julie. My cell phone is working. You can reach me directly that way. I do have an additional email I'm using because I cannot send large documents through the city email. Basically, I can get city email here at the house, but I cannot email large documents out of here. So I have a secondary one. Julie has that. If you need it, let her know. But other than that, this has been a real experiment, I guess. And kudos to Julie and to Matt Eckleberry for doing the behind the scenes work to make this happen.
That's right.
I could have done it without Matt, him putting it on live and helping me out, so.
Mayor?
I just want to echo what Thomas just said. The technical part of this exceeded my expectations. We do this, have for a couple of years, and it inevitably a lot of glitch. I don't think we had that. So as Tom said, kudos. Really, I don't, beyond that, I really appreciate council moving some of these things forward. I can say that from a financial point of view, this isn't the worst local government financial situation that I've been part of. And I would say that some of the decisions we've made over the last 5 or 6 years, both before and after we released from fiscal emergency, puts us in good position. Particularly, I believe that even under worst case scenarios, that our all fund balances will meet that 3-month plus a 3-month operating, and in the case of the electric, 3 months operating cost or expenses plus 1 month of utility, 1 month of AMP bills. So we're really looking at weather this a number of different ways, but I feel at this point that we're going to be able to honor all of our commitments contractually, labor commitments, other commitments, and still be in all right shape, if you at the end of this year. But anyways, a lot of time's being spent on that, and most of what happens, I hope, is wasted time in terms of planning. My thoughts are, if things don't turn out bad financially, it doesn't hit our worst case scenario. Good thing for the city, for the citizens, particularly. I've said before, our utility funds are very much small mutual. Have 6,000 customers going to have to work together to keep rates down, maintaining and keeping our fund balance adequate. So it's not the worst. I can remember mid-'80s being in a worse financial situation in county government at that point. So we'll be okay. It's not anything we ask for, but we'll be okay. Talk to me later this year about 2021, and I may be singing a different verse of that same song. But thank you.
Okay, is that it? Mayor, is that it?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, if anybody has a question, we're working real hard to make sure our key transportation projects funded and on schedule. There's and get a chance, Ken, to have a streets committee with a little bit about the juggling that we're going to try to do there to be able to do those 2 major projects, really Harding Way this year, Portland Way next year, or into early 22. So anyway.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Carl.
If there's any committee meetings set up, you'll contact them, Julie, right?
Yes, I will. I can get with the mayor's office and let me know what meetings they need. And if we can do maybe another, like some together like that, that would work too. So we have everybody together. That seemed to work. Maybe not do it, maybe do it on a different night. Maybe not the council night, might be a little easier, but that would work doing them sequentially like that.
If nothing changes, we'll see you back in 2 weeks on Zoom. And
yeah, we do have we probably will have the finance committee meeting, correct?
Right, 22nd, I
Brian, that's supposed to be the 22nd. Is that one supposed to take place? I'm guessing. You're muted, Brian. Hold on. All right, Brian, go ahead. You're unmuted.
Brian?
Yes, I'm anticipating meeting on the 22nd.
Okay. So if we have any other, maybe we could do, if we want to have like a Ken's meeting or something, we could maybe put a couple together on that night. That might work on the 22nd if it works for everyone.
Okay.
Is there not going to be a police fire health on Thursday then?
Do you feel the need that we need one?
I know we didn't have one last month, so we haven't been able to provide any COVID updates, anything along those lines. Again, it's up to council if they feel they need that. Any of our updates, again, most of them you can view and see. through social media or request those through our office. I just wanted to make sure, because I know that there was an email sent out that there was a meeting, so I just wanted to verify.
Yeah, that was the automatic email. I didn't get that one stopped in time. Tammy, do you want to have a meeting on, it would be Thursday?
Well, if, I think that's just if Trish has something that she, wants to share with us.
Yeah, I mean, if there's another day where you're wanting to stack meetings, I'm sure we can probably make arrangements to do it that way as well.
Would the 22nd work for you?
Pulling it up. Let's see.
That's the finance committee meetings at 7, so we could do, I don't know, that would probably work for you, Tammy. You probably don't have dance classes right now.
No. That's on the Wednesday.
Virtual dance.
Yeah.
That's
It'll be
a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just couldn't do it until 6:30 or later, so it would either have to be after finance or just prior to.
What do you think, Tammy? What works for you?
Well, how would that work? Would you do finance at 6 and then we'd have ours at 6:30?
I would probably do finance at 7, that's what it normally is. So that way it can be a regular meeting. That way it's not a special meeting, and that way they can amend the agenda or whatever they need to do. So one at 7 and then either have yours after, or like, I don't know, 6:30 or right before the finance committee meeting.
Okay. So Trish, would you prefer 6:30 or would you prefer it after the finance committee meeting?
Either works for me. So it's whatever the members of your committee are
Okay.
able to do.
Yeah. Well, if everybody could make it 6:30, I think that would be great.
Okay.
Work for everyone? Okay, we can set that up. That will be a special meeting, so,
And that's Wednesday, right? The 22nd?
yes.
Correct.
And I'll set up the Zoom meeting
Okay, thank you.
with Matt, of course, because I can't do it without him.
As far as signing the legislation, you'll get with us as to those.
Yeah, I can bring it by your house, Carl, and then,
Somewhere too, or whatever.
uh-huh.
Will you be going to the city hall? You'll be
Yeah, I'm at the city building now, so I can have it all ready, printed out here and ready to go and bring it by your house
Well, whatever.
in the morning.
In the morning, okay.
Yes.
Okay, does anybody else have anything? I would just like to say, follow up with Law Director Palmer, thanks a lot for Julie for all this here, setting this up. I know it wasn't easy. It took a lot of hours to do it, along with Matt also. Couldn't have done it without him. So this modern technology isn't perfect, but it's some of you kind of in the dark. I have trouble following you around here because you move. The bottom 2 rows is moving around all the time. So and can't see very good. But anyhow, thanks for your patience, and I guess that's all. And Mr. Triplett, you're one I'm in the dark, but do you want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion,
Okay,
Mr. President.
And I'll second it.
Okay, second by Mrs. Earlston, all in favor?
Aye.
Would like meeting here by adjourn at 7 or 8:10.